That's the former governor of Minnesota, and to the pro wrestling community, the man who tells it like it is. He is the body, the mind, and he's truly one of the greatest of all time. He is Governor Jesse Ventura. And Governor, we are so excited to have you with us, and, thank you. That's really all I could say.
Well, you're welcome. I don't do many wrestling shows anymore, probably because I'm a bit ignorant. You guys probably know 10 times more than I do about what's happening in the world of wrestling today, because I'm on to other things and always have been and kept myself quite busy, so I don't always pay attention.
Without a doubt, but I'll tell you, your stamp is, of course, left on the professional wrestling business forever, and we will get to that quite shortly, but we want to talk about your web show, Off the Grid, which you can catch new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on aura.tv/offthegrid and youtube.com/Jesse Ventura. And could you tell us a little bit about what the Off the Grid is, and are you really off the grid?
Well, first of all, yes, I really am. I live down in the winter for at least half the year or more. I live down 900 miles from the U.S. border. I live 1 hour from pavement and 1 hour from electricity. So I literally do live off the grid. I have no telephone. I have no television set that I watch. And I do that for 6 months, and I do the show out of here. It's wonderful. It's an internet show, so there's no FCC regulations. I can say anything I want. And I guess the selling point to the wrestling fan would be this. If you loved my interviews and you liked my commentary when I did wrestling, imagine I do 10 to 12 minutes uninterrupted on those shows all the time. It's Jesse Ventura doing a tirade on whatever subject he may choose, but I tend to do it a little bit in my wrestling persona, because it's really like a 12-minute interview without Mean Gene.
They are fantastic. I'm subscribed, and I do watch them when they come out, and you're exactly right. It is like a 12-minute promo, and personally, I'm fascinated by all your topics. Whether or not I'm really, in the know of what you're discussing, I just find you to be such a great speaker. But if you're off the grid, where are you getting your news from?
Well, I have a command center in Los Angeles, and just because I'm off the grid doesn't mean the internet doesn't work. We're on the internet. So I get the majority of my news from the internet. I have a great staff that works up in L.A. and pumps the information down to me, so that I'm pretty well educated on every event that I talk about. And, of course, the show is also my personal opinions on whatever the particular subject is. So I don't have to study something overly that long to have an opinion on it.
Yeah, and that's and again, like I said in the opening, the man who tells it like it is, and that's definitely one of, I think, every wrestling fan's favorite part about your whole entire, whether it's persona or any of your shows. But, how about the fact that media is really, really starting to change in its mainstream forms, and people are really finding alternative ways of getting their information, not just news, but any kind of information. Where do you see us heading, I guess, as a culture in terms of the news business?
Well, it's because mainstream media has been consolidated. I mean, a few years ago, you had probably 32 different outlets of mainstream media to get information from. Today, through corporate takeover and all that, you're down to about 3 or 4. So mainstream media in the United States is controlled, and that's dangerous. Give you a quick example. About a month or so ago, a little more, Vladimir Putin did a 2-hour speech, and the United States of America didn't even cover it, nor anyone in mainstream media did not show it to the American people. Now, excuse me, if Vladimir Putin is supposed to be our big enemy, and he's the guy we have to fear out in the world, don't we as citizens have a right to hear what the guy has to say? I'd like to hear things from his own mouth rather than having it come through our State Department or through our government filtration system where they tell me what I should hear about Vladimir Putin.
Definitely.
That's definitely a good point. And while we're talking about the news and something that's in the news, maybe it's time to preface some part of your wrestling career, but a huge integral part of your career was the AWA and the recent passing of Verne Gagne. What are your thoughts on Verne and working in the AWA?
First of all, I had no idea Verne died. Verne died?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, he passed away last night.
Yes.
Passed away last night? Are you kidding me? That's
Fortunately so.
me. This is the first news I heard of it, and the reason it's stunning to me is because last night I actually went through a thought process thinking about him.
Oh, my
Oh,
goodness.
wow.
Way down here in Mexico. That's why you've caught me completely off guard with this. Verne passed away last night, huh?
Yep.
Well, Verne Gagne was a great wrestler. There's no doubt about it. He amateur and pro. He came up through the amateur ranks. He wrestled NCAA champion, the Olympics and all that. And as a professional, he was one of the best there was. I give him his due. But I will also state this. He was a very, very difficult man to work for. I found him extremely difficult to work for, maybe because he was such a perfectionist, I don't know. But his people skills weren't always the best, let's put it that way. But as far as his skills in the wrestling ring, he was phenomenal, and he had a long, wonderful career. And I'm really sad today, believe it or not, to learn that Verne died last night. How old was he?
89.
89 years old and passed away last night. Well, I'm heading back tomorrow to where my wife is at off the grid, and I'm sure she'll be likewise saddened to hear the news. And I feel bad that I won't be able to attend his funeral because I'm down here off the grid, because I certainly would have gone had I been up in the Twin Cities. I'll say that publicly.
Definitely. And the AWA was such an integral part in your career. And if you think everyone, kind of associates Verne with the old school, but if you think about it, he was responsible mostly for Hulk Hogan and obviously you, Jesse the Body Ventura, two of the biggest names in the history of the business. What do you think about your time spent in AWA? He
was, but he wasn't, because you have to remember something. Both Hulk and I wrestled in other places before we came to the AWA. I had actually been wrestling 5 years. I'd wrestled in Portland, Oregon for 3 years, Kansas City, Hawaii. And so, but let's put it this way. It was during Verne's tenure with Verne that I became Jesse the Body Ventura. In fact, Verne named me that because he had recently, a couple years earlier, lost superstar Billy Graham. And I remember he asked me, he said, "Can you do superstar Graham?" I said, "I can do superstar Graham better than Graham." Because Billy was my hero. Billy Graham, there wouldn't have been a Hulk Hogan and there wouldn't have been a Jesse Ventura had there not been a superstar Billy Graham. Rest assured of that. He was the influence that brought us in. And Verne said to me, he said, because he had lost Graham to New York, and he said, "Can you do superstar Graham?" And I said, "Sure I can." And so he said, "That's what we want." He said, "Let's come up with a name for you." And Verne actually thought of it. He said, "We're going to call you Jesse the Body. And I want you to pose and do all that stuff that Graham does." And I said, "You got it." And so that's where the birth of Jesse the Body came from, particularly was through Verne. And Verne, had a great territory. And the thing that made Verne's territory so good was that you only wrestled about 12 or 14 times a month at the most, which gave you ample time with your family, which gave you ample time to work out and recover from injuries. It wasn't this, I remember at one point in Oregon, I wrestled 63 consecutive nights in a row without a day off. And there's guys that wrestled way more than that, guys that beat that record like nothing. But 63 days without a day off, where when you wrestled for Verne, you had time off. You'd wrestle a day or two, and then you'd get 3 or 4 days off. So it really made the Minneapolis territory at that time a wonderful place to be if you wanted to make good money and you didn't want to be on the road every day of your life.
Do you think that the AWA was your favorite place to have wrestled?
No, because now here's a downside of Verne. Verne used to make me so angry at times because we'd be in doing interviews and Greg would be running the interviews, his son, and we'd bang through every market. We'd have them down to about 2 or 3 markets. Verne would come in and you'd be there for 6 hours. doing the final 2 markets. I used to get so angry. I lived along the Mississippi River. I'd be so ticked off. I would drive home, I'd park my car, and I'd go sit down by the riverbank in the water before I would go in to see my wife and kids.
Oh, wow.
And I say that today, and I chuckle about it, and I can look back on it today at age 63 and laugh about it a little. But at the time it was happening, Verne could literally drive you crazy. He would frustrate you so much at that. I remember one time we had 4 sellouts. Me and Adrian Adonis had, I think, 4 sellouts in a row in Denver, and we wrestled Verne and Mad Dog or somebody that night, and one little thing didn't go the way Verne wanted it to go in the match. And when the matches were over, he came in our dressing room into the showers and screamed and hollered at me and Adrian for about 2-3 minutes about it. Then he left. I remember I turned to Adrian and I said, Adrian, wasn't this our 4th sellout in a row? And he goes, yeah. I said, wouldn't you think the guy would come in maybe and pat us on the back and say, God, you're doing a great job?
Yeah, you would think.
But that was, and I'm giving it to you honest here, that was the pros and cons with working for Verne Gagne. He demanded a great deal from you, and he was a tyrant at times. He was that. But then again, maybe he had to be in the business he was in.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned Adrian Adonis. Speaking of him, you have fond memories of working with him not only in the AWA but also in the WWF?
Well, Adrian was phenomenal in the ring. You couldn't have asked for a better, more athletic partner, great wrestler, could do anything you could imagine in there. My only problem with Adrian after being with him for 3 or 4 years was outside the ring, Adrian sometimes required a babysitter, and I got tired of that role. I didn't feel as a professional it was my job to make sure he made the planes on time or the event on time and all that stuff. And so he became a little dependent on you, and I really didn't like that aspect of dealing with him, and that was one of the reasons I finally broke the tag team up, because I said, look, taking care of myself is a load enough. I don't need to be taking care of a second person always either. And don't get me wrong, that was all stuff outside the ring, not inside the ring. Adrian was never a problem in the ring at all, ever.
Did you have a favorite match with him that you guys, as part of your tag team, the East-West Connection, do you guys have a favorite match, or maybe the matches that you had together?
Yeah, I think the favorite match I had with Adrian was when we beat the High Flyers at the St. Paul Civic Center, and it's today on Verne Gagne's tape of the AWA. And I always love it that I got the pin on Greg Gagne, so it'll go down in history that Jesse Ventura gave Greg Gagne the spike pile driver with a little help from Adrian and covered him 1, 2, 3. So that's probably one of the matches I remember the most, with Adrian being my partner when we teamed up. You know what a spike pile driver is, don't you?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
That's where I pulled the guy up into a pile driver. Adrian climbs the top rope, and he jumps off and grabs the guy's feet, and we both drive him head first into the mat. It'll knock you cold if we want to. And that's how we beat Greg that night. And it's on the famous AWA tape of Verne Gagne that Vince has out there now. I know because I actually watched it this winter. I have a copy of it down here, believe it or not.
Huh. That's interesting. Now, speaking of great moments and maybe almost forgotten moments, you spent some time down in Memphis, and you had quite a run down there. We actually recently spoke to a buddy of yours who spoke very, very fondly of you, and that's Austin Idol. And
sure.
What were your memories of working down in Memphis?
Well, Jerry Lawler always treated me wonderful. And in fact, I can tell you something. I made history in Memphis because I'm the only person who beat Jerry Lawler, and Jerry Lawler never defeated me back.
Huh.
Because unfortunately my daughter was born, and my daughter had some somewhat severe complications at birth, and I had to remain in Minneapolis, so I ended up, and Jerry was fine with it, I had to ship the belt back to him because I couldn't come down anymore because of the family situation.
Wow, look at that. A little scoop, a little history lesson right there from
yeah,
Jesse the Body. Wow, awesome.
I mean, Jerry Lawler beat Andre the Giant. He beat everybody in Memphis, but he never beat Jesse Ventura. That's a feather in my cap. Jerry the King Lawler never beat Jesse Ventura in Memphis. But no, I had a great run with Jerry. Jerry hired me out of Minneapolis when I had a fallout with Verne and I wasn't working for anybody. He brought me down to Memphis. I'd go down there, I believe it was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and then I'd go back to Minnesota Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I do Memphis, Louisville, and I think Evansville. And then occasionally I'd do one other. They'd have me there for 4 days when they do Lexington.
Now, when you moved on past AWA and everything and you moved into the WWF, what are your memories of working for Vince Sr. at that time? And how is he different than working for Vince Jr.?
Well, Vince Sr. to me was the smoothest promoter of his era because you could get angry about a payoff and you could be in total turmoil and you'd walk in and see the guy and in a matter of 5 minutes you'd walk out, you'd feel good and you didn't get nothing. If you follow me.
Yeah.
And that's how smooth Senior was. And then 5 minutes later you're angry again because you thought he did it again to me. You know, he had a way. Vince Sr. had a way with dealing with talent that was unique because he got the best out of you without giving up anything to you, usually in most situations. And that's a hell of a negotiator that can do that. And the difference between Senior and Junior is probably Junior's much more volatile than Senior. Senior's very low-key. You'd never hear him raise his voice. He always spoke very softly and quietly, where you would see far, far much more emotion out of Junior than you would ever see out of Senior. Both great in their own right, because believe me, Vince Jr. is the P.T. Barnum of our generation, no doubt about it. He learned from his father, and then he went beyond anything that his father would have ever expected to do.
Now, definitely a key moment in your run in the old WWF days was a feud with Bob Backlund. Do you have good memories of working with Bob, and did you enjoy that run?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, because Bob gave me the memory of selling out Madison Square Garden 3 times in a row, and that's the mecca of ring sports. That's something that can never to be taken from me because we all know that the heel, the villain, draws the house. And to sell out with Backlund 3 times in a row, 23,000, whatever it is the Garden holds in New York City, I'll always have fond memory of Bob Backlund. Plus, he's a Minnesota kid like I am, and Bob always kept himself in phenomenal condition. There wasn't a better conditioned athlete in pro wrestling than Bob Backlund.
Definitely. He was in phenomenal shape. But moving along from your actual wrestling career and into the commentary and announcing role, I have to say you're probably the greatest announcer of all time. Maybe close second would be Bobby Heenan, but you're definitely the greatest of all time. Now, how was it going from wrestling to commentary? Did you enjoy that jump? And do you almost enjoy commentary more?
Well, in the end, I enjoyed commentary more because I didn't have to get body slammed and I was making equal money. You don't got to be a rocket scientist to go, wait a minute, I can make the same amount of money talking and I don't have to get in the ring no more. I like this job, But the transition happened when I got injured. I was due to wrestle Hogan for the first time for the title in L.A., and we were in San Diego, and I was struck with pulmonary emboli, blood clots in the lungs. And I went critical at the Sharp Cabrillo Hospital for 7 days. I didn't know if I'd survive. My wife had to fly out to San Diego. That's how critical it was. And so the recovery took about 4 to 5 months on blood thinners and all that. And I give Vince credit because Vince paid me a salary the entire time I was out and injured, and he didn't have to. There was nothing contractual that said he did, but Vince McMahon paid me while I was recouping. But he knew the potential that I had. And so I would say it was a smart investment on his part. Now, during the recoup situation, since Vince was paying me, well, when I got to a certain point of recouping, Vince is going to put you to work. So he called me up one day. He said, Jesse, he said, I've got an idea. He said, never before has there been a heel or a villain on the mic. He goes, do you think you could broadcast and do color commentary from a heel perspective? I said, easy, Vince. I said, no problem at all. So we set it up. He put me with Monsoon initially on the, quote, B team, I guess. And it took off like wildfire. And I'll never forget the first night I was going on the air. Vince came over to me, and he gave me my marching instructions. Imagine you're told this. He said, Jesse, here's the attitude I want you to have. And I said, what is it? He said, if you believe it, it's true. Now, what can get better than that? Then, of course, I transitioned up to the A team, which was Vince and Bruno. Well, Vince then made the decision to get rid of Bruno. I begged him not to. I said, Vince, don't lose Bruno. I said, he's my foil. Bruno, he don't even know it, and I use him. Bruno is phenomenal. Don't do this. But Vince was set. He got rid of Bruno to where it became just me and him. But, guys, you got to realize at that point, I had the greatest job maybe in the world because I worked one day every 3 weeks. I got paid big money for every pay-per-view I did, and I think he was doing about 4 a year then. And the best part was I could go on national television and completely insult my boss with his blessing. Now, what better job could there be on the planet than to be able to rip your boss with his blessing and get paid for it?
And there's nothing better than that.
For it. And get paid good money for it. The only
and the
thing
reaction,
that caused the fallout, well, what
that?
caused the fallout in the end was that I would not give up. I owned the copyrighted name to my name and likeness. I had it federally copyrighted with the government, and I refused to give it up to McMahon, and he couldn't have anybody outside the circle. So that was the reason I was dismissed from the WWF.
It's hard to believe how long ago it was because, like I said, you're still an institution amongst the pro wrestling community. In terms of everybody who's ever stepped up to be that color second mic has always tried to be the next Jesse the Body Ventura, and as I said in the intro, there's only one. And although we're winding down on time, and I wish we could keep going, we're not going to even touch on WCW because we know that was not one of your favorite experiences. But we're gonna move back off the grid.
Actually, let me comment on WCW
Sure.
a moment. WCW wasn't a bad experience because they signed me to such a big contract of money that there was nothing they could do to me to make it a bad experience. The problem was it was great when I forget the guy that signed me was in charge, but then they fired him and they brought in Bill Watts. And Bill Watts didn't know the business anymore. Bill Watts was old school who didn't realize that the new wrestling was about television. It wasn't about house shows. It was about money revenue at TV. And Watts could never figure out why they were paying me what they were paying me. So subsequently, they didn't use me correct. And Jim Ross has even admitted today that Jim Ross's biggest mistake was he didn't work with me. Jim Ross was very difficult with me down there, and it was jealousy because I was getting paid this huge money more than anybody else.
Yeah, and it's another thing, you enhanced their product big time, and it's a shame at that time Jim Ross did not work that great alongside you, and it definitely, you could tell with some little jabs he would kind of try to trip you up or something, but it's just a shame looking back. But hey, we all...
He wouldn't allow chemistry. I would feed him something that he should react to, and he wouldn't react at all. He wouldn't. Right. There was no chemistry. Now, I had chemistry with Tony Schiavone.
Definitely did.
When I worked with Tony Schiavone, there was the Jesse the Body chemistry because Tony would professionally work with me and let me be Jesse the Body. Ross wouldn't let me do that.
Do you think that had to do with working with Tony while Tony was with Vince for that little bit and he could kind of be in that Vince mindset and feed off you correctly?
Sure, absolutely it helped. Tony came up with, I'm sure that it helped because Tony knew how to handle Jesse Ventura. He saw the formula that worked with him, where Jim Ross was not going to bend that way, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't make a guy cooperate with you.
Right, definitely. And how could we also forget the classic Beach Blast 92 where you ripped on Tony Schiavone's orange nose for pretty much the whole entire show and still look back on that very fondly.
I don't even remember it. I got to sit here and go, what the hell is he talking about?
No, it's great.
No, I don't know. But, no, I didn't have a bad time down in WCW. But then, of course, Hogan came in, and there's the bad blood between he and I. And then they didn't even call it. The last 6 months of the contract, I didn't even have to show up. They just paid me.
Oh, man, it's such a shame that they let you go, especially, or that they didn't use you correctly at that time, because it could have just been so great. And as appreciators of your craft, we would have loved to have had you those last couple of months.
Well, the problem was Hogan, because Hogan, I found out later in my lawsuit of Vince, Hogan was the one that ratted me to Vince when I tried to unionize.
Right, okay.
And that was stunning to me because I thought he was my friend. But then I realized why during the court case. We got the payoff of WrestleMania 3, and Hogan made more money than all the rest of us combined, including Andre.
Wow.
That's why he didn't want a union. Well, that's why he didn't want a union. He was getting taken care of big time. All the rest of us were getting the droppings. You know, we were getting the stuff that was falling on the floor, not the main meal.
Right, and we just had Brian Blair on a couple weeks back. He kind of said the exact same thing that you just said, and that's very interesting.
Well, I'll tell you what. If by chance you ever get Brian Blair on again, please give him my best regards. I have great respect, and I consider Brian a terrific friend many years ago.
We will. He's actually, we are planning to have him on again in the summer. He's getting enshrined into the Dan Gable Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame Museum, and he will be coming back on in June, I believe. So we would definitely do that. But
is this the one in Iowa?
Yes.
I'm in that. They awarded me the Frank Gotch Award many years right after I was done being governor, and I wasn't going to take it because it was amateur wrestling. I said I was a high school swimmer. I didn't even wrestle amateur. But then they told me I was a unanimous selection, and they said Dan Gable voted for you. And I said, Dan Gable feels I should take this award? They said, absolutely. I said, well, if Dan Gable is good with this, I will come down and accept the Frank Gotch Award. And I did. And that's at the Shooter Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. Well, Governor,
I have a great memory there.
That's great. Well, Governor, we really appreciate you coming on. And it's Aura.tv's Off the Grid. It's an online political talk show with over 3 million views on YouTube, and you can get it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Aura.tv/Off the Grid and YouTube.com /Jesse Ventura. Now, Governor, just before we go, just wanted to ask, what are some of the topics that you do cover on Off the Grid?
Well, we cover everything that's timely. You know, it's my perspective on what's going on. Like we talked today, of course, about the riots in Baltimore, you know, and my perception. And like I said, I'm 63 now, and it's true. If you don't read history, you're doomed to repeat it, because this is reminding me of the civil rights movement of the 60s, guys. It looks identical to it, and it scares me because we haven't progressed anything in 50 years.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I'm in Washington, D.C., so this is all hitting very close to home, and the coverage is definitely pushing the scare tactic side of it, and it's a shame to see.
Well, that's what you'll get on Off the Grid. I'll give you a perspective that you may not always get from mainstream media. You see, Off the Grid's a double genre. I'm off the grid, but it also means you're going to get off-the-grid news. You're going to get news that mainstream media won't talk about. Like, for example, the United States leads the world with the most people in prison, and yet we're supposed to be home of the brave, land of the free.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. And And that's why we love Off the Grid. And like I said, I'm subscribed, and they do not disappoint. So we implore you to subscribe to Jesse Ventura on YouTube, as well as aura.tv/Off the Grid. And also, please follow Governor Ventura on Twitter at GovJVentura. And Governor, this was an absolute pleasure and our honor.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it, and we'll do it again sometime, hopefully.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons so you don't miss any of my latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Facebook at the Hannibal TV for more live streams and videos. And while you're at it, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at the Hannibal TV.